Having discussed previously a bizarre game in Sunset Overdrive and a game involving monsters in Monster Hunter World, it's time to combine the two and talk about Monster Prom, a wacky dating sim about trying to court various horrors into going to prom with you. I will be discussing the game as a whole, with the second term DLC included, which essentially just redoes the base game with additional characters. You play as one of 4 characters, each with a customizable name and preferred pronouns. 2 characters present as masculine and 2 feminine. Once you select a character, you are asked to complete a personality test that establishes your starting stats and likability among your potential dates. Once the game begins proper, you choose which area of the school you wish to visit. Each one will boost one of your stats. After getting that stat boost, an event with your classmates will occur. You're given 2 ways to respond to the situation, each with a different skill check. Should you pass this check, your stats will go up further and you will gain approval with the monsters involved. Should you fail the check, expect the opposite to happen. These events are extremely well written. They have this really dark humor to them, but they're so ridiculous that it keeps things from getting morbid. Even failing these events can result in some funny interactions, so it's not a total loss. My biggest problem with these mechanics, however, is the skill checks. While some form of challenge is of course required, you're likely going to spend most of your time trying to figure out which skill corresponds to which of the 2 given responses, and then picking the one you have the highest stat in. And you'll probably be wrong, because there is a very minute difference between a fun response and a creative response. Bold choices are the easiest to predict, so in my case I tend to play a bold character, and I don't pick the choice that I'd actually want to. So this is less role-playing than it seems on the surface. This issue continues into the lunchtime segments. During lunch you can select who you want to sit with 2 monsters typically occupying 1 table. Once you choose where to sit, you are presented with another event with 2 ways to respond. One response obviously favors one classmate, while the second response favors the other classmate. Again, you're not going to pick the response you like, you're going to pick the response that gains you approval with the character you are trying to go to prom with. Except I soon learned that even this option is inferior, because passing skill checks during other events already gains you approval with your classmates. So the best option for lunchtime is to sit with one of the characters that is not a romance option, as sitting with them will instead grant you a stat boost, which will help you pass the skill checks, thus gaining more approval in the long run. Additionally, during the day or during the night, you can choose to go to the library to get money instead of a different stat boost. You can visit a shop during any part of the game besides the first turn or the last turn to buy items that increase your stats or trigger unique events. Some items are necessary to complete certain characters' endings, but this is fairly rare. You start out with 5 money, unless you pick certain responses during the beginning personality test, and I find it best to buy a stat boosting item and then forget about money until an event awards you with more. Between guessing which responses I have the skills to pass, sitting with side characters at lunch, and generally avoiding the store, I feel like I'm doing the dating sim version of min-maxing. Unfortunately, this is necessary because it becomes very hard to pass the skill checks towards the end of the game. This may not have been an issue if it wasn't for the unique endings. There are several unique endings that require passing 3 specific events. The last event always occurs on the last day, and if you fail it, which is likely because the skill check is so high, you fail the unique ending and will likely have your prom proposal rejected altogether. Playing multiplayer may throw a wrench into the works for some of this, because if another player sits with a classmate at lunch, or visits a certain location during the day or night, you are prevented from doing the same. Though honestly, unless your friends are trying to min-max too, you're probably not going to have a problem. Multiplayer can be a fun experience, as playing with others adds new events that let you help or sabotage the other players. The lack of voice acting though becomes a bit of a problem in multiplayer, because you have to make sure everyone is finished reading before moving on. Given all that I've said about the game up until this point, it probably sounds like I hate it, but trust me when I say that the cleverness of the writing makes up for all of it. I don't care if I have to min-max as long as I get to interact with these characters. Even the characters I have absolutely no desire to romance are still fantastic when they appear in the events with the monster I am trying to romance. And while I have to admit that it's a little strange that all the characters seem to be pansexual, the inclusivity is nice. Plus, this is a game with a ghost who does copious amounts of drugs, and there's a hipster vampire. Ubiquitous pansexuality is far from the strangest thing in this game. And while I criticize how difficult they are to get, the unique endings are also very interesting and crazy. Just as an example of one, you help your date punch the sun. The other endings are not really any less crazy. Each run will take you about 30 minutes if you're playing by yourself, so it should make seeing multiple endings go pretty quickly. Monster Prom is worth experiencing for the characters alone. You may feel robbed of agency because of the skill check system, but it is ultimately up to you to decide which character you want to take to prom, and with 8 options you have a lot of unique endings to see, and the writing throughout is absolutely rife with meta jokes and hilarious moments. It is well worth your time. Just try not to get too upset if you fail your final skill check and end up getting rejected as a result.